May our Father, Messiah, and the Holy Spirit be with us. 1 Kings chapter 20. King Ben-Hadad of Aram gathered all his army together. 32 kings were with him, along with horses and chariots. He marched against Samaria, laid siege to it, and attacked it. Then he sent messengers into the city to King Ahab of Israel and said to him, "Thus says Ben-Hadad, your silver and gold are mine. Your fairest wives and children also are mine." The king of Israel answered, "As you say, my lord, O king, I am yours and all that I have." The messengers came again and said, "Thus says Ben-Hadad, I sent to you, saying, deliver to me your silver and gold, your wives and your children. Nevertheless, I will send my servants to you tomorrow about this time, and they shall search your house and the houses of your servants, and lay hands on whatever pleases them, and take it away." Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land, and said, "Look now, see how this man is seeking trouble. For he sent to me for my wives, my children, my silver, and my gold, and I did not refuse him." Then all the elders and all the people said to him, "Do not listen or consent." So he said to the messengers of Ben-Hadad, "Tell my lord the king, all that you first demanded of your servant I will do, but this thing I cannot do." The messengers left and brought him word again. Ben-Hadad sent to him and said, "The gods do so to me and more also, if the dust of Samaria will provide a handful for each of the people who follow me." The king of Israel answered, "Tell him, one who puts on armor should not brag like one who takes it off." When Ben-Hadad heard this message, now he had been drinking with the kings in the booths, he said to his men, "Take your positions," and they took their positions against the city. Then a certain prophet came up to King Ahab of Israel and said, "Thus says our Father in heaven, have you seen all this great multitude? Look, I will give it into your hand today, and you shall know that I am your Father in heaven." Ahab said, "By whom?" He said, "Thus says our Father in heaven, by the young men who serve the district governors." Then he said, "Who shall begin the battle?" He answered, "You." Then he mustered the young men who served the district governors, 232. After them he mustered all the people of Israel, 7,000. They went out at noon, while Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the booths, he and the 32 kings allied with him. The young men who served the district governors went out first. Ben-Hadad had sent out scouts, and they reported to him, "Men have come out of Samaria." He said, "If they have come out for peace, take them alive. If they have come out for war, take them alive." But these had already come out of the city, the young men who served the district governors and the army that followed them. Each killed his man. The Arameans fled and Israel pursued them, but King Ben-Hadad of Aram escaped on a horse with the cavalry. The king of Israel went out, attacked the horses and chariots, and defeated the Arameans with a great slaughter. Then the prophet approached the king of Israel and said to him, "Come, strengthen yourself, and consider well what you have to do, for in the spring the king of Aram will come up against you." The servants of the king of Aram said to him, "Their gods are gods of the hills, and so they were stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they. Also do this, remove the kings, each from his post, and put commanders in place of them, and muster an army like the army that you have lost, horse for horse, chariot for chariot. Then we will fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they." He heeded their voice and did so. In the spring, Ben-Hadad mustered the Arameans and went up to Aphek to fight against Israel. After the Israelites had been mustered and provisioned, they went out to engage them. The people of Israel encamped opposite them like two little flocks of goats, while the Arameans filled the country. A man of God approached and said to the king of Israel, "Thus says our Father in heaven, because the Arameans have said, 'Our Father in heaven is a God of the hills, but he is not a God of the valleys.' Therefore, I will give all this great multitude into your hand, and you shall know that I am your Father in heaven." They encamped opposite one another 7 days. Then on the seventh day the battle began. The Israelites killed 100,000 Aramaean foot soldiers in one day. The rest fled into the city of Aphek, and the wall fell on 27,000 men that were left. Ben-Hadad also fled and entered the city to hide. His servant said to him, "Look, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Let us put sackcloths around our waist and ropes on our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will spare your life." So they tied sackcloth around their waist, put robes on their heads, went to the king of Israel, and said, "Your servant Ben-Hadad says, 'Please let me live.'" And he said, "Is he still alive? He is my brother." Now the men were watching for an omen. They quickly took it up from him and said, "Yes, Ben-Hadad is your brother." Then he said, "Go and bring him." So Ben-Hadad came up to him, and he had him come up into the chariot. Ben-Hadad said to him, "I will restore the towns that my father took from your father, and you may establish bazaars for yourself in Damascus, as my father did in Samaria." The king of Israel responded, "I will let you go on these terms." So he made a treaty with him and let him go. At the command of our Father in heaven, a certain member of a company of the prophets said to another, "Strike me." But the man refused to strike him. Then he said to him, "Because you have not obeyed the voice of our Father in heaven, as soon as you have left me, a lion will kill you." And when he had left him, a lion met him and killed him. Then he found another man and said, "Strike me." So the man hit him, striking and wounding him. Then the prophet departed and waited for the king along the road, disguising himself with a bandage over his eyes. As the king passed by, he cried to the king and said, "Your servant went out into the thick of the battle. Then a soldier turned and brought a man to me and said, 'Guard this man. If he is missing, your life shall be given for his life, or else you shall pay a talent of silver.' While your servant was busy here and there, he was gone." The king of Israel said to him, "So shall your judgment be. You yourself have decided it." Then he quickly took the bandage away from his eyes. The king of Israel recognized him as one of the prophets. Then he said to him, "Thus says our Father in heaven, because you have let the man go whom I have devoted to destruction, therefore your life shall be for his life, and your people for his people." The king of Israel set out toward home, resentful and sullen, and came to Samaria. Chapter 21. Later the following events took place. Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard in Jezreel beside the palace of King Ahab of Samaria. And Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard, so that I may have it for a vegetable garden, because it is near my house. I will give you a better vineyard for it, or, if it seems good to you, I will give you its value in money." But Naboth said to Ahab, "Our Father in heaven forbid that I should give you my ancestral inheritance." Ahab went home resentful and sullen because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him. For he had said, "I will not give you my ancestral inheritance." He lay down on his bed, turned away his face, and would not eat. His wife Jezebel came to him and said, "Why are you so depressed that you will not eat?" He said to her, "Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, 'Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if you prefer, I will give you another vineyard for it.' But he answered, 'I will not give you my vineyard.'" His wife Jezebel said to him, "Do you now govern Israel? Get up, eat some food, and be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite." So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal. She sent the letters to the elders and the nobles who lived with Naboth in his city. She wrote in the letters, "Proclaim a fast, and seat Naboth at the head of the assembly. Seat 2 scoundrels opposite him, and have them bring a charge against him, saying, 'You have cursed God and the king.' Then take him out and stone him to death." The men of his city, the elders and the nobles who lived in the city, did as Jezebel had sent word to them. Just as it was written in the letters that she had sent to them, they proclaimed a fast and seated Naboth at the head of the assembly. The 2 scoundrels came in and sat opposite him, and the scoundrels brought a charge against Naboth in the presence of the people, saying, "Naboth cursed God and the king." So they took him outside the city and stoned him to death. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned. He is dead. As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, Go, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead. As soon as Ahab heard Naboth was dead, Ahab set out to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. Then the word of our Father in heaven came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Go down to meet King Ahab of Israel, who rules in Samaria. He is now in the vineyard of Naboth, where he has gone to take possession. You shall say to him, Thus says your Father in heaven, Have you killed and also take possession? You shall say to him, Thus says our Father in heaven, In the place where dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, dogs will also lick up your blood. Ahab said to Elijah, Have you found me, O my enemy? He answered, I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do what is evil in the sight of our Father in heaven. I will bring disaster on you. I will consume you, and I will cut off from Ahab every male, bond, or free in Israel. And I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, son of Ahijah, because you have provoked me to anger and have caused Israel to sin. Also, concerning Jezebel, our Father in heaven said, The dog shall eat Jezebel within the bounds of Jezreel. Anyone belonging to Ahab who dies in the city, the dog shall eat. And anyone who dies in the open country, the birds of the air shall eat. Indeed, there was no one like Ahab, who sold himself to do what was evil in the sight of our Father in heaven, urged on by his wife Jezebel. He acted most abominably in going after idols, as the Amorites had done, whom our Father in heaven drove out before the Israelites. When Ahab heard those words, he tore his clothes and put sackcloth over his bare flesh. He fasted, lay in sackcloth, and went about dejectedly. Then the word of our Father in heaven came to Elijah the Tishbite. Have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the disaster in his days, but in his son's days I will bring the disaster on his house. Chapter 22. For 3 years Aram and Israel continued without war. But in the 3rd year, King Jehoshaphat of Judah came down to the king of Israel. The king of Israel said to his servants, Do you know that Ramoth Gilead belongs to us, yet we are doing nothing to take it out of the hand of the king of Aram? He said to Jehoshaphat, Will you go with me to battle at Ramoth Gilead? Jehoshaphat replied to the king of Israel, I am as you are. My people are your people. My horses are your horses. But Jehoshaphat also said to the king of Israel, Inquire first for the word of our Father in heaven. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 of them, and said to them, Shall I go to battle against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain? They said, Go up, for our Father in heaven will give it into the hand of the king. But Jehoshaphat said, Is there no other prophet of our Father in heaven here, of whom we may inquire? The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, There is still one other by whom we may inquire of our Father in heaven, Micaiah, son of Imlah. But I hate him, for he never prophesies anything favorable about me, but only disaster. Jehoshaphat said, Let not the king say such a thing. Then the king of Israel summoned an officer and said, Bring quickly Micaiah, son of Imlah. Now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat of Judah were sitting on their thrones, arrayed in their robes, at the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets were prophesying before them. Zedekiah, son of Chenaanah, made for himself horns of iron. And he said, Thus says our Father in heaven, With these you shall gore the Arameans until they are destroyed. All the prophets were prophesying the same, and saying, Go up to Ramoth Gilead in triumph. Our Father in heaven will give it into the hand of the king. The messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah said to him, Look, the words of the prophets with one accord are favorable to the king. Let your word be like one of them, and speak favorably. But Micaiah said, As our Father in heaven lives, whatever our Father in heaven says to me, that I will speak. When he had come to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead, or shall we refrain? He answered him, Go up in triumph. Our Father in heaven will give it into the hand of the king. But the king said to him, How many times must I make you swear to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of our Father in heaven? Then Micaiah said, I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains, like sheep that have no shepherd. And our Father in heaven said, These have no master. Let each one go home in peace. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, Did I not tell you that he would not prophesy anything favorable about me, but only disaster? Then Micaiah said, Therefore, hear the word of our Father in heaven. I saw our Father in heaven sitting on his throne, with all the host of heaven standing beside him, to the right and to the left of him. And our Father in heaven said, Who will entice Ahab, so that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? Then one said one thing, and another said another, until a spirit came forward and stood before our Father in heaven, saying, I will entice him. How? Our Father in heaven asked him. He replied, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. Then our Father in heaven said, You are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do it. So you see, our Father in heaven has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these your prophets. Our Father in heaven has decreed disaster for you. Then Zedekiah, son of Chenaanah, came up to Micaiah, slapped him on the cheek, and said, Which way did the spirit of our Father in heaven pass from me to speak to you? Micaiah replied, You will find out on that day when you go in to hide in an inner chamber. The king of Israel then ordered, Take Micaiah and return him to Amon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the king's son, and say, Thus says the king, Put this fellow in prison and feed him on reduced rations of bread and water until I come in peace. Micaiah said, If you return in peace, our Father in heaven has not spoken by me. And he said, Hear, you peoples, all of you. So the king of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah went up to Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you wear your robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. Now the king of Aram had commanded the 32 captains of his chariots, Fight with no one small or great, but only with the king of Israel. When the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, It is surely the king of Israel. So they turned to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. When the captains of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. But a certain man drew his bow and unknowingly struck the king of Israel between the scale armor and the breastplate. So he said to the driver of his chariot, Turn around and carry me out of battle, for I am wounded. The battle grew hot that day, and the king was propped up in his chariot facing the Arameans, until at evening he died. The blood from the wound had flowed into the bottom of the chariot. Then about sunset a shout went through the army, Every man to his city, and every man to his country. So the king died and was brought to Samaria. They buried the king in Samaria. They washed the chariot by the pool of Samaria. The dogs licked up his blood, and the prostitutes washed themselves in it, according to the word of our Father in heaven that he had spoken. Now the rest of the acts of Ahab, and all he did, and the ivory house that he built, and all the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? So Ahab slept with his ancestors, and his son Ahaziah succeeded him. Jehoshaphat, son of Asa, began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of King Ahab of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Azubah, daughter of Shilhi. He walked in all the way of his father Asa. He did not turn aside from it, doing what was right in the sight of our Father in heaven. Yet the high places were not taken away, and the people still sacrificed and offered incense on the high places. Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat, and his power that he showed, and how he waged war, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? The remnant of the male temple prostitutes who were still in the land in the days of his father Asa, he exterminated. There was no king in Edom, a deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of the Tarshish type to go to Ophir for gold, but they did not go, for the ships were wrecked at Ezion-Geber. Then Ahaziah, son of Ahab, said to Jehoshaphat, "Let my servants go with your servants in the ships." But Jehoshaphat was not willing. Jehoshaphat slept with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of his father David. His son Jehoram succeeded him. Ahaziah, son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel and Samaria in the 17th year of King Jehoshaphat of Judah. He reigned 2 years over Israel. He did what was evil in the sight of our Father in heaven, and walked in the way of his father and mother, and in the way of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin. He served Baal and worshipped him. He provoked our Father in heaven, the God of Israel, to anger, just as his father had done. Father willing, we will continue with 2 Kings chapter 1. May our Father, Messiah, and the Holy Spirit be with us. Repent. The kingdom of heaven is near. Peace.